What's up, everybody? We're officially back at the GM Roundtable. With me, as always, is my co-host, Phil Harker Smith. What's up, man? How you doing?
Hello. I'm good, Rob. How you doing, man?
Doing good. I'm glad to be back doing the GM Roundtable. It's been,
Yeah.
wow, like over a year, I think. Almost a
Been
year,
too
maybe.
too long.
Yeah, it's too long. I think that's a good a time frame. Yeah,
Too
it's been
long,
too
yeah.
long. I'm excited to be back. Yeah, anybody tuning in, we did the GM Roundtable years ago. Me and Phil pretty much hosted it up since the very beginning. We had numerous guests come through, did a bunch of episodes, and then got focused on between real life stuff, expanding our own brands and everything else, all the gameplay, everything that we've been doing. Just kind of lost track of the roundtable and finally was able to put some time aside, get back together, plan it out, and get this back going on the last Friday of every month. I'm just excited to be back. And we have some excellent guests with us. Awesome guests at the table
We
today.
certainly do.
Oh, yeah. And a great topic, too. And NPC tips for any TTRPG. I think it's a great subject for all GMs, even players, too, to learn just the intricacies of how NPCs work so they can be a better player as well. But yeah, I'm excited, man. I think, look, let's just get right to the table. Let's get to our guests. We can go around the table, all introduce ourselves and stuff, and just dive right into the subject. You ready to go?
I'm ready.
All right, let's get to it. All right, we're at the table. Let's make sure everyone's mics are working. Seth and Dread, check your mics. Say hello.
Hello. Hello.
Nice. Ooh, sultry. You guys sound great. You guys sound great. Yeah, this is the GM Roundtable. Thanks so much for being our guests. If you haven't heard, me and Phil have been doing this a long time. We took a big gap over a year before we've done a new episode, and now we're back at it. I'm so excited. And this is the new format, too. We've kind of, I don't know, laser focused. Phil, what would you say?
Streamlined it.
Streamlined it, absolutely.
Oh, we've streamlined it. We used to have a lot of sections and stuff, but we feel like we want to pick just like a strong topic and then give that topic the room it needs to breathe and talk around it, rather than kind of break it up into these little sections and stuff. Just more focus on the discussion itself.
Oh yeah, better deep dive that way too. I think it was a great decision. But yeah, before we get into the subject, we know we have a great one today. Before we get into it though, let's do like we usually do. Let's go around the table. Everyone just take a moment to introduce yourself. Let people know where they can find you online and what you got going on. I'll start it off. I'm the founder of Cybernation Uncensored, and yeah, we do all kinds of stuff like this, all kinds of talk shows and tips and series, tutorials, and tons of gameplay. Not just me, I run multiple teams, all kinds of games and stuff as GM, but we showcase all kinds of other GMs and games as well. I've got Dune coming up, well, Cyberpunk Red tomorrow, Dune Sunday, Monday I'm running Shadows of Asterin. Every Thursday I run Cyberpunk Red for Sirenscape with Phil. He's always with me there as a player. So lots of stuff going on all over the place. So check out Cybernation Uncensored here on Twitch, YouTube, and anywhere there's a podcast. I'd also like to give a quick shout out to all the supporters on Patreon that opted in: Kevin Moreno, Joseph Holder, Naomi Madlass, William Huddleston, Jamie Minch, Sean Erfurt, Leaded Coffee, Chris Anderson, Matt James, Jerem Reservoir Panda, Roten, aka Renegade 20, Samurai Mac, Steve Barr of Sirenscape, another official sponsor here at Cybernation Uncensored, Zeno, Zach Capricious Nature, Cyber Smiley Raven, Andy Stretton, Copious Salt, Derek Lawrence, Daniel Terry, Alex Maxwell, Nicholas King, Tracy Goodwin, a.k.a. Stink Palm, Igor, Chris Callies, Homer Odyssey, and Ryan Anderson, who I missed last time. Shout out to Ryan Anderson. I really apologize for that. But Phil, why don't you tell people what you're all about?
Hello. So yeah, I'm Phil Harker Smith. I am one of 4 of the main cast of Roll to Cast. That's ROLE to Cast. We're a quadrio of Aussie actors who do a podcast of a variety of TTRPGs. So we're currently in our 8th season of every kind of RPG you can imagine. We've got Cyberpunk 2020 and Red. We've done Kids on Bikes. We've done Vampire. We've done Witcher. We just finished Avatar Legends, which just came out. And we're in the middle of Starfinder at the moment as well. That's just kicked off. So you can get that wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you like. We also have a YouTube channel. We do a live monthly show, a little live stream chosen by our patrons. And then so that's tomorrow, and that is going to be Bluebeard's Bride, run by my colleague Ellen. So yeah, check out Rollcast for all your variety TTRPG needs. It's like half an hour, original soundtrack, and lots of tight editing. So it's a really fun podcast. I hope people would check it out.
And you just did that you have the live show coming up too, not just a podcast, but you're actually doing that.
We do, yeah. So the
really
Adelaide
cool.
Fringe, we have a live show. 4 of us are doing one show each, where we do our favourite games that we've done over the last 3 years of making the podcast. So yeah, Adelaide Fringe over the 4 weekends, end of February through March.
Very cool. Dread, what's up? Thanks for joining us. You're our first official guest with the new format and stuff. Yeah.
Look at me.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm DreadedGM, also known as Dread, or you can call me Josh if you like. If you want to check out what I do, you can find me on the Twitch channel, DreadedGM. Also currently going through growing our YouTube channel, which is super exciting. But I'm most known around the internet for the charity events that I've held in the past. I don't like talking about them because I like good for good's sake. But if you want to check that out, you can find it on the link tree as well. But yeah, professional voice actor and game master here on the internet. I'm very excited to be here with these illustrious people here on this round table to talk about NPCs.
Hell yeah. I got to say, too, and a fellow GM with dreadlocks. I got my dreads go all the way down to the floor here.
I was so excited.
I was like, oh, look at
baby dreads. I was like,
look at
let's
us go.
We need more.
Yeah.
We're multiplying.
Power dreads unite.
More of us.
Let's do this.
Exactly. That's why we hold our power, right? That's why we hold our power.
Exactly.
Never cut them off, otherwise.
Oh yeah.
It's all over.
Yeah, I once posted. I was thinking about cutting them because I've had them so long. They drag the floor. I have to cut them every once in a while. And one of my friends like replied back like, "No, you're gonna lose all your mojo. What are you thinking?" And they were freaking out. I was like, "Oh man!" So I never cut them. I was like, that had me worried.
Hell yeah. I was thinking about doing like the side shave. Sorry, quick tangent about the dreads. I'm sorry, Seth. I was thinking about doing the side shave as well, but I found out that you can actually like reattach them if you want. So you can get them reattached.
Whoa.
So if you ever feel like
that's crazy,
just putting down the mantle for a bit, you
weave them back in or something. Yeah,
you can weave them back in. Yeah, that's what my loctician said. That's
crazy.
right. They're called locticians.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, hey. Our other guest here, our other first official guest on the new format. So excited to have you here. The man that barely even needs an introduction. Everyone knows the name. People in chat were already giving you props of reason getting back into TTRPGs and such. You have so much great content. Just mad props to you, Seth Skorkowsky. Tell people what's up.
Hey, thanks for having me. And I'm actually really happy to be talking with Dread again, even though I don't have dreadlocks. I'm Seth Skorkowsky. I'm a novelist. I have a YouTube channel that talks about tabletop role-playing games, how-tos and reviews, and sometimes just really stupid videos because that was the mood I was in. That's under the highly imaginative name Seth Skorkowsky. I am a podcaster with the Modern Mythos podcast, where we usually talk about investigative horror games, like Call of Cthulhu is one of the main focus, mostly horror games. And that's pretty much me. That's all I do.
Nice. Well, so excited to have you here. Like I said, I'm a big fan. Your content is amazing. Like I said, people in chat already commenting about it. Same with you, Dread, since I got familiar with what you're doing, which I was introduced to you through the Roll to Cast friends I got here. Phil and Ellen actually introduced us. So excited to see what you do. And then, of course, the dreadlocks, you know. But yeah, and then Phil, as always, to have me and you back at the GM Roundtable. Excited. So let's do it. Let's dive in. Today's topic.
Good chat.
Oh, yeah.
Real fast.
We've got a big topic.
Real fast. Phil, have you ever played Bluebeard's Bride before?
I haven't, no. Ellen has been going on about it for about 1 million years.
Okay,
she's her favorite game.
A treat.
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to it. Yeah, I know a little bit about it, but yeah, she's kind of bringing us in blind. So yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun.
It is a cool game. So
I love innovative, strange games. So, but we're not talking about innovative, strange games. We're talking about NPCs today. It's a huge topic, and I'm sure everyone has lots to say about it. But and as always, we have to decide initiative. Who's going to act first? Right. So I think it's time everyone rolled a d20 and gave us the results.
Let's roll for initiative here. I've got my my d20 from my Modifius Dune set, the Arrakis Sand Dune set. I love this. Shout out to Modifius, another official sponsor. It's here at Cybernation Uncensored. Let's roll them. See what we got. I got a 10.
Gonna be 17, guys.
I only got a 10.
I rolled a natural 20, but I rolled a natural 20 before stream, so I feel like if people don't trust, I'll read.
Oh, you're that
You got
guy?
it.
It's just like the statistics on rolling 2 natural 20s is ridiculous. So,
What'd you get, Seth?
So I'm rolling my Q Workshop RPG.
Hey!
Official Seth Skorkowsky dice.
what?
And,
Little dice flex.
You got your
Oh shit! Look at this dice flex going on here.
That's a big flex. I think that Seth should get advantage.
Yeah, I think he gets a +2
if you roll
at
with
least.
your name dies
And I
from
still
Q
lose.
Workshop,
Something.
you get advantage for sure.
What did you roll? What did you roll, Seth?
I got a 4.
All right. Well, it sounds like Dread. You lead it up. Look, we all probably have multiple different tips and things, and we might even cross over, obviously. But let's just use this initiative to at least start off the round, and everybody at least name one tip, and then everyone can respond to their tip that they mentioned or whatever, and then move on to the next GM like we do. But Dread, yeah, start it off. What's your first tip for NPCs?
NPCs. The one thing that I would probably give as a tip, and I don't know if anyone else agrees with this, but not to lose sight of the NPCs from a GM's point of view, being the GM's avenue for play, right? So one of the things that I had to sort of think on a lot as a game master was, who does the NPC serve? Ultimately, it serves, the story and the players, but also don't forget that you're there to play as well, and you want to get enjoyment out of your NPCs. So always keep an eye on like what the NPC is there for, what you want to do with it, and don't betray your NPCs for the sake of for everyone else. Remember that you need to get your enjoyment out of that character as well. And for someone like me who's very like player focused and very player wanting the players to have the best time, for me that was a struggle for a long time. But some NPCs are for you, and that's okay.
Oh yeah, I think that's a great point.
I think you make better NPCs when you're excited about them too.
Oh,
Yeah.
I was about to say,
exactly.
NPCs that I have kind of like, because sometimes there's those ones that spontaneously happen and you fall in love with them. Like there's like whatever personality, and the GM is just having a blast playing whatever this random person is. Players eat that up. Yeah. And even though it's like, well, it's the shopkeeper's assistant is now the most beloved person in this entire universe, because at the moment you decided to talk like that, I don't know, you got possessed with the personality of somebody else, and everybody's like, yeah, they love that. So yes, if the GM is playing and they're enjoying and having fun, the players feed off of that, and which encourages that more often. So yeah, totally agree.
Yeah, and I think putting the focus, like you said, on it being the GM's kind of outlet to actually play too. Like, you always kind of use NPCs to whether to push plots forward or, be like a mechanism of the game. But like you said, like don't lose sight of, to have fun with it. It is your chance as a GM to kind of get in the world with the players and stuff. It's a lot of fun.
100%.
Most definitely.
Yep.
Yeah, Phil, I think you're next in the initiative there. What you got?
Yeah, okay. So for anyone who's got this far and doesn't know what NPC means, it means non-player character. Just in case anyone, we
probably should have started
making assumptions earlier.
Probably should have started with the basics.
Started with that. It's a non-player character, which is all the characters that the storyteller, the GM, the referee, whatever you want to call yourself, plays during the course of play, which can be many, many characters. So a thing I hear a lot about is people say, oh, I can't do voices. I can't be a good GM, or I can't do good NPCs because I can't do voices. And my tip is that's not true. Doing voices does not mean doing an accent or doing a crazy kind of voice. There are many, many ways to very quickly and very simply modulate your voice to give a character some kind of different sound to your voice. So the ways I would recommend as being easiest are pace, pitch, and mannerisms, right? So pace, very simple. This character talks much more slowly than you do. Already, they have a different feel about them. Suddenly you've got a wise character, you've got someone who's a bit more considered. And equally, if you just decide to speak fast and keep going, rattling from one sentence to the next, you're already building a character, right? You're not doing a voice, you're just speaking faster, well, so. And same thing with pitch, you just, a younger character or someone who's a bit more nervous, you just pitch your voice up. I'm just speaking how I normally would with a slightly high-pitched voice. And you've got a differentiation there. Same with a low voice character, just drop the larynx down here, and then your character is someone else. And mannerisms is simply as much as like someone puts in lots of ums or hesitations, or someone repeats themselves a lot. It can get more complicated, uses the wrong words in the wrong situations. But if you have someone who has a stammer, or someone who has lots of stops and starts, you have another mannerism, and you can mix and match those across characters, and suddenly you're doing voices, and you've given your characters a bit of differentiation and a bit of life, and it's really not as hard as you imagine it to be. That is my tip.
That's a great tip. Yeah, I think a lot of people are intimidated by really getting into NPCs and characterizing them with a voice, because I think, like you said, a lot of people think they have to just do like an accent. And what a great tip! Like, there's so many other ways you can, like you said, slow it down, speed it up, go higher pitch, go lower pitch. There's 4 ways right there that anyone can do, and instantly kind of give some variety to the NPCs. Great tip. Yeah. Anyone else feel about that?
What I'll add to that is 2 things: is not just the modulation and everything, but if you add an emotion, they're bored, they're angry, they're distracted. Just literally come up with an adjective and then add that to it. But most of mine are really bad impersonations. And I'm terrible at impersonations, so nobody knows I'm impersonating anything half the time. But it is kind of like that. He talks like Steve Buscemi, and I can't do a Steve Buscemi to save my life. But everybody knows I'm talking differently, but they'll never recognize what it is. Or not main characters, bit characters from different movies. Our most famous, like, random Cyberpunk gang member of all time was that dude that tried to rob Bruce Willis in The Fifth Element, the "give me the cash" guy.
Yeah.
And they bumped into him, and he's saying all this other stuff. I think they would get it because he did have to say "give me the cash," but that was all it was this guy was on screen for like a minute in a movie. It was like it is played by this guy right here, and so I will often just kind of pull from different characters or different actors or whatnot into a really bad impersonation, and that's kind of my method.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. I think that's a great way too. Like, if you're scared of accents, you want to practice that. Phil's kind of pointers of manipulating the voice. But Seth, that's a great idea. Like, even if you're bad at impressions, like, it doesn't matter. Like, just try to do these different impressions, and you're automatically going to sound different than you normally do. And you're making this new character or whatever. It might not be that exact impression you were going for, but you absolutely made a new voice and character.
And it also will, you will naturally start doing mannerisms, because you're trying you're trying to channel a person. So it's not like you're like a blank slate and you're making it up. You're kind of like, how would Patrick Warburton do this? And you kind of go through and it kind of builds this whole character around the fact it's a bad impersonation, even though the character they are is nothing like whatever. So that's my tip.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, no, and that definitely goes hand in hand with Phil's tip there. Did you have something to add, Dread?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. So the one thing I'll say is to remember that you're in a collaborative community when you sit down at the table. As a game master, the more you put in, the more others will put in as well. One of the most magical things about TTRPGs, in my opinion, is that we all get to be actors, voice actors, storytellers, and we get to build that community together. So if you're feeling nervous, just let everyone know that you're feeling nervous if that's the type of table that you have, and start building that collaborative space, because I bet you other people at the table are just as nervous about doing voices as well. And many time that I've jumped in with a voice that I wasn't sure on, and I'm usually okay with it because I'm looking across the table and everyone else is just doing their best to sort of bring their characters to life. Another thing I didn't want to jump on anyone, but like with the pitch control, sometimes that's a bit hard for people. But one thing that I'll say as a voice actor myself, there is a cool trick you can do. Morgan Freeman deepened Morgan Freeman's voice by practicing speaking after yawning. So if you want to get to that lower register, as you yawn, your larynx will drop and you'll stretch out that vocal cord, and you should be able to hit those lower notes.
Nice.
And my vocal teacher that from singing taught me, if you think of it, the cutest thing that you can think of, and just go, "Aw," and you can get those higher notes as well, because that's how you get up there. You're like, oh my gosh, it's such a cutie. You can get up to that higher sort of like register as well. So there's a little voice actor tip there. But I will say that they're even if you're not good at voices, and I know there are GMs out there that don't like doing voices, and that's fine as well. One thing that I do often, if I'm not feeling a voice, or if I'm not feeling like I want to act or whatnot, I'll give a description instead. So I'll explain the emotion that's held on the face rather than actually pull the face. I'll talk about this deep, rich voice instead of actually giving the deep, rich voice if I don't feel like doing it. And you have that power as a game master, and that could be incorporated into your style. So one of the really cool things about tabletop role-playing games is there's so many ways to do things. And it's one of my favorite things as well is like, it's a big infinite puzzle that I'm trying to figure out how to do things differently and whatnot. So yeah, have fun with it, and then build that community at your table is essentially my tip, amongst all those other tips that I just sort of like threw out there.
Yeah.
Kind of bouncing off of that, you're kind of, you go, sometimes players are a little bit shy and don't want to do that. Always compare it to like early at the night at a club. Nobody will get on the dance floor until that one brave son of a bitch walks out there by themselves. And then like 3 minutes later, the dance floor is packed. But it required that one person who's like, you know what? I ain't afraid to dance in front of a room alone. And they just go out there and do it.
So true.
So if you just go for it, that actually gets people so excited. And once the first person in the room, whether it's a player, the GM, whoever, the first person just goes for it, and everybody's like, oh, they're having so much fun. Everybody just starts doing it so much easier. And if you're fortunate enough, you've got a player that is absolutely into that. Oh, it's like a godsend, because it's like, oh yeah, Ricky's got this. But once the first person does it, everyone's like, yeah.
Oh yeah,
exactly right.
You show your vulnerability. You just kind of open up. Don't put on that same sort of shy, I can't do it first. Like if you can just break that ice and kind of start it off. I've seen it happen. Yeah, everyone tends to be able to jump in a little easier, but it's so true. People are kind of nervous about being first, the tip that what was that? What was that, Phil?
I said you got to fake it till you make it.
Exactly. Oh, absolutely. In every industry, in every way.
Yeah.
But we're up to my initiative here, and my tip kind of goes, hand in hand with what Seth was kind of saying, trailing off of what Phil's tip was with like giving them an emotion. For me, one of the first things I tend to do with an NPC, and I've got a couple other little things to get into on the next round that also kind of go with what Phil was saying, but in a different way. But this one kind of struck me first, was giving them a motivation. Every time I create an NPC, I'll just give them one simple motivation, and it helps kind of open up their personality, their reactions to the players and things. And the motivation might be plot oriented, or it might just be real life oriented. Like if they go into a bodega, the shop owner is like, his motivation is like he just wants to get off work. He's been pulling doubles for all fucking week, and he just what do you want? Okay, I don't know. I've never seen that person. He just has no fucking time for the players. They've got to really persuade him, and that sort of way. And maybe it doesn't have to do with the plot. It's just his life, or maybe you directly have their motivation have to do with the plot. Like maybe they're avoiding the person you mentioned because they're scared of whoever's involved or something, whatever it is. But I think starting an NPC with like their personal motivation, and it could just be, like I said, one simple thing, just helps kind of bring them to life when the players meet them, because then you're not scrambling to decide, if they're going to react in a positive or negative way, or if they're part of the plot or not, or whatever. You can instantly at least have some type of direction for their personality, because you drive it by the motivation that you already set. And it might be as simple, like I said, it's in your notes. You have the NPC laid out, and you just have next to it, like, tired of work, or like can't wait to get home to family, or like loves his job and great customer service skills, or like, like whatever it might be, or really sick but needs the money, so he's there. Like whatever the motivation is, like you can instantly kind of give it a little bit of characterization or something. Do any of you do that when you create your NPCs? I mean, obviously, when it involves the plot, everyone does that because you have the NPCs motivated by the plot. But do you also do that with just general NPCs, like have kind of generic motivations that you give them to help bring them to life, like I do?
Absolutely. Actually, this was going to be my tip. Thanks, Rob.
Yeah, that's great.
No, but so I thought is every NPC, even guard number 4, who's watching the back door of the place they got to break into, needs to have one motivation, and I prefer it if it has nothing to do with the plot. There is like, I'm excited because I'm new here, or like I just got in trouble with my boss and I'm like really cheesed off, or it's like, my girlfriend messaged and she says that we have to have a talk, and now I'm really worried about that. And now some PC comes up and they're in some stupid costume and they're trying to get their way inside, and I'm now distracted because it's like, look, I need you to go away. I got to text my girlfriend back because she said we have to talk, and like I'm really freaking out right now, or whatever it is. I like the idea of what the plot is, what the player characters are really focused on, and everybody else has got their own story that they're focused on, and it is just like, look, man, I need you to go away. I got to pick up my kids from daycare, and you're coming in and you're trying to buy stuff from me. Like, yeah. So I like the idea that they should all have one thing, and whatever they do should kind of be bending toward or through the lens of, is this helping me get my thing? Is this in the way of my thing? Am I irritated or am I happy dealing with these characters because of this other thing I got going on? Because it's their story. And it can often become a way in role-playing situations if the player characters can figure out what that character wants in order to manipulate something that they want that NPC to do. And
might not even know until
Right.
they come up with it based on what you're doing, which is always the best. I think.
Yeah. And sometimes it might be a little different than you were planning, but you kind of portray it a way, and they connect some different dots, and it's just as good, and you just lean into it. But yeah, I've seen that happen too, absolutely. But yeah, it gives depth to the NPC, when they have that their own motivation or their like one thing. Like it's not just face value. It seems like they have some depth to the character, right? It's not just a background visual or something, background actor or whatever. They have a little.
I think one of the things we're touching on is that the NPCs are very much a fabric of whatever world you're making, right? So it can be very easy to focus on the heroes, the characters, as being the only kind of like 3D people in a kind of paper world. And that's the kind of feeling you want to avoid. You want to, especially if you're running something that's a bit more grounded like Cyberpunk, where you really are just supposed to be some guys making your way in a really tough kind of world. Giving everyone a reason to be there and a reason to feel the way they feel and do the things they do just brings a little bit of texture to everything. And then when the players kind of push against it and probe it and see how real it is and how you react, they suddenly feel like they're in a real world with dimensions that is kind of going on aside from them. And I think that's so important for immersion. It's so important, as you talk, Rob, like, yeah, okay, we have these detailed NPCs for the plot because they're plot motivated, but the background NPCs, the people who just happen by, are so important just for, not so much for storytelling, but for texture and world building. And if they have a little bit of crunch to them, a little something to get the teeth in, the players will relax into the world much more, I feel.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Hells yeah. I totally agree with everything that's said. It adds authenticity to the NPC and it gives them reason. And not only that, it reinforces what I was trying to say at the beginning as well. It gives the GM something to play with. You know what I mean? Like that's their character, that's their motive, that's what they're trying to put into the world. I already like if I can imagine myself at Seth's table, and it's like guard number 4, like you're having problems with your girlfriend. Let's figure that out. Like let's take a moment and like.
Yeah.
Right, it adds a lot to the story. It adds a lot to and like the thing is that it doesn't have to fully serve the narrative, and it doesn't have to fully serve the characters. It serves the NPC, which I love. I forget which author said this, but an author said the same thing about the way they write books and bringing their NPCs and characters and just having those characters exist around their world and their story. It just adds like so much texture and depth, right?
George R. Martin might be.
It would have been Martin.
I think I remember him saying something sort of similar to that when he talks about like how his characters get on and live and die and stuff. He's like, well, they're doing their own thing, and sometimes that gets them killed.
And it also reminds me of a Futurama meme. I don't know if you guys know this one or not, but it's the planet where it's like it's every NPC I've ever made. I will now take my leave. I live here, so I won't actually going anywhere. But you don't have to talk to me anymore. I'll post it. I'll post it in our little roundtable chat. But it reminds me of that one as well.
Oh yeah, that slightly reminds me of Venture Brothers. The alien's like, ignore me, and he's like 7 foot tall with a big eye, and he's like leaning over them, like videoing them to learn about humans or whatever, and he's just like, ignore me, and he's like always right there in their shit, you know.
It's a regular household joke with my wife and I. Ignore me.
That's awesome. So hey, we're over to you.
A chance to act.
Amazing.
Yeah, so Seth.
Yeah, Seth in his hefty number 4 initiative out of his D20. Damn it, Seth.
Well, actually, one thing I kind of on that last one is which Phil reminded me of is in Star Wars. The 2 best stormtroopers in Star Wars and it's A New Hope, is when they get called and say, yeah, I think it's some sort of drill. And it's like, hey, you've seen those new speeder bikes? And they just start kind of bullshitting about this other stuff as Obi-Wan's doing his thing. So these 2 guards just have their own little thing. They're kind of distracted, kind of chatting about it. And that made them actual people, because that's what people do. They weren't like, we must follow orders and we must always be on point and we have no personality. Like, no, they're like 2 guys like, I don't know what's going on. Maybe it's a drill. Like, hey man, did you see the new speeders out there? And that's the type of thing that if you can throw in as a GM, adds that texture to it of like, and now they actually might feel bad about sniping that guard, but it's not going to stop them. But they'll be like, oh man, because that little thing that is so small made them real. So I just wanted to throw that on. Okay, so my backup, since my good one was taken, thanks, Rob, is give them a physical defining point quickly. That way they can help do it. And it could,
now you took one of mine.
They've got a gold tooth. They have, there's something about them. We had, he was a pawn shop guy that's been in like 4 Cyberpunk campaigns of mine. A guy named Skinner, who had a giant Russian cyber arm who did not give a shit. And he is mostly kind of modeled after a bartender at the beginning of Neuromancer, who just had this big, like, secondhand crappy cyber arm. And the moment that any of my character players would do it, and like, you go and say, there is a guy with this huge arm. He has to have his shirt modified just to get his sleeve through. It's like, oh shit, is this Skinner? Like, yep, it's Skinner. and that kind of helps them visualize whatever that point is. Like, we've got one blue eye, one brown, or something, just real quick physical description about them. They'll gravitate to, because otherwise they can be kind of these nebulous shapes. And once you add that one feature, the players in their imaginations will actually start filling in all the details around that once they get that first,
true.
like, memorable thing that you say about them physically. They'll build the rest. You just have to get that one, like, this is what stands out about them. And it could just be what they're wearing or something, but one concrete, this is how they look different than everybody else.
Oh yeah, no, that was one of mine too, by the way, Seth. That was one. That was one of mine too. But that just shows, great minds think alike and stuff. Like, all of us are game masters, and these are all valid tips and great things for NPCs. Lots of crossover here. What were you saying, Phil?
So this is one thing I do for combat tracking, which can kind of it serves two purposes. One, keeps track of like who's who when you're doing Mook 1, 2, 3, and 4. So instead of Mook 1, 2, 3, and 4, you have goggles, you have no teeth, you've got mohawk, and you've got cyberleg. Right? It's bang. You've got four people. Is it who? Oh, who's been shot? Who did you shoot 3 times? Oh, Cyberleg. Okay, I'm gonna finish off Cyberleg.
Everyone's going for Cyberleg. There's the Cyberleg
exactly.
Great.
And it differentiates them and also builds that mental picture. So I think it works really well for both. And then sometimes if I'm feeling particularly cruel, what I like to do is I give them like a name, an age, and something they care about. So like and I've done explicitly end of combat to be like, well, you killed Marcus, age 32. He leaves behind 2 children.
You got to hit him in the field.
He's only been working for Biotechnica for 3 months.
Yeah. Just to pay off the student debt, I did that in one of my teams 2 years ago. My very first Cyberpunk Red stream, way back, and I did something similar where they killed a guard, and like on his dying breath, he was saying how he was doing it just to pay his way through school, and like he was doing it because he had school. He was trying to put himself through college. He was just hired security guard. He didn't care about the job, but they killed him. But no, all jokes aside, though. That I had the same thing that Seth said, kind of that same tip about giving them something distinguishable or memorable, and it also, like, this was the one I mentioned earlier, leaned into what you were saying, Phil, because I was saying, give them like a physical attribute, an accent, a catchphrase, something that like you can hang on to, just something, that like I'll buy that for $1, just some, where that's from, right? So like instantly, different things like that, and it goes hand in hand with just making them memorable, whether it's one simple thing just on that forefront that you can instantly pick up on. And I love your idea, Phil, of just calling them that for your combat tracker as a GM to help keep yourself organized. I do that on the team by their weapons sometimes, like, oh, the guy with wolvers or the guy with gun and stuff. But I love the idea of doing it with traits and things too. It just helps seal the deal of how different they look and are. And I don't know, I really like that. That's a great idea.
And you got to remember that all of those descriptors that you do add have the possibility of world building and enriching the story as well. Like we're talking about how like one of them you've killed. Was it Phil? The Cyberleg Phil? Is that what you were saying? You kill that character and suddenly they're just trying to pay off their student debts. That adds to the story. And that's how if you do play legacy games, like 2 years later, Phil's kids come after you because you killed Phil. So,
exactly.
Don't be afraid to get creative with it because it's an opportunity to tell stories, which is super cool as well. And I agree with the descriptors in combat. That's how you do theater of the mind. You need to have those descriptors.
I love your legacy idea too. I would go dark if it was Cyberpunk Red or something dystopian to where it's like, well, you killed him and now the loan collectors are coming after you to pay his debt now because you took, he was making the payments and now you're responsible. Like it'd be some 100%. Weird, and it's legal. Night City approves it, like it carries over. That's legal. Now you have to pay it or they get to, I don't know, harvest your 100%. Cyberware. All right, let's get into the next. Let's do one more initiative and run around and see what we got for tips. I have like one more because we kind of crossed over, but I do have one more thing. Let's just see. Let's roll the 20 here.
I'm gonna roll high again. If not,
ooh, I got a 17.
Oh, okay, I'm fine. 6.
14.
What'd you get, Phil?
Was it 2? I got 2.
Oh,
so I think it's Seth to go first.
No, 17, Rob.
I got 17.
17? I'll get 17.
So 17, 14, 6, 17. And 2.
Mine's quick and simple. It doesn't really have to do with like personality or style so much as it is using quick stats. It works on any TTRPG. I do it with Cyberpunk. I've done it with Dune, Fallout. I plan on doing it with Cyborg and other ones I have upcoming here in the next month. But, usually I'll have like a general combat number and a general social number. Sometimes I'll elaborate on that if I need to, where it's like an attack, a defense sort of thing, whether it's evasion or attacking, whether it's handgun, shoulder arms or melee or karate. I'll just have like one general combat, or like I said, break it into attack and defense. I'll have like one general social skill. I might break that down into a couple things, like if it's persuasion versus being perceptive, I might separate that a little. But generally speaking, with NPCs, I'll kind of condense all the stats and numbers. That way I'm not completely avoiding them and kind of just running on this cinematic sort of character that doesn't matter. I give them a little bit of something just in case it ends up in crunch. What if the team, as Cold Spider said in chat earlier, like, note to team, don't kill all the NPCs, which is funny because a lot of teams do that. They're kind of beat up on NPCs. They're kind of mean to them sometimes, you know. But yeah, you know, sometimes you need a combat skill or a social skill. They're going to interact. They're going to interrogate. They're going to talk, and it might not just be as simple as a little interaction with the bodega guy about his girlfriend. It might involve something a little deeper, and you're going to need you know, those numbers to work with. So that's my tip, is I'll usually kind of break it down at least in the most minimum sense, a combat number and a social number. Sometimes I'll you know, elaborate on those a little bit. But what about you guys?
One, you son of a bitch, you stole mine again. So I was actually going to go off of the old Cyberpunk 2020, the Fast Dirty Expendables, where they basically put 4 sheets on the same one. And so when you're trying to stat your bad guys and you've got a bunch of guards and minions and goons and all that, what I would normally do is a lot of them might have the exact same stats as one another, except for some individual features. They might have like 4 items listed, and I'll just have like A, B, C, D. And I was like, well, these are the 4 guards. These are the things that make them unique. Or I will have, in other games, they have one skill that's really high. It's always like a different skill. And I'll just have like a bunch of words written next to it of like, well, this is the guy that's really good at this. But they're essentially the same person, just over and over again with like a quick little note that makes them different. Because a lot of new game masters, they don't know that. And they've got like these elaborate character sheets for guard number 4.
Right.
It's like, no,
absolutely.
Dude, you don't need to do that.
Yeah. Well, think back when you first, you know, your very first campaign the first campaign you ever wrote. I mean, you know, it's pages. You're writing every possibility, elaborate. You're describing everything. Like you said, you have full character sheets for NPCs sometimes. Like a lot of times GMs will do that on their first times. And then you start realizing it's like, you know, like you gotta kind of condense it outline style or get it down smaller and allow the player agency to kind of elaborate what's going to happen there, because it's, you know, it's never going to go the exact way that you plan or exactly with what you have. But yeah, no, I love that idea though, kind of like the same one, but giving them like a little twist and different
twist.
Yeah, it's cool.
The player has a full detailed sheet because they only have to run that person, right? They've got that one guy until you kill them, you know, or they retire. So they can afford to have a million different things on there. You've got every single possible person they might run into, all the people they want to try and kill, you know, and anyone they throw a spanner in and decide to try to bring up out of their past, or
anyone from their life path.
They want to meet someone, and you can't really afford to do that with everything. You've got a lot of prep to do usually, depending on your style. So don't be afraid, as Rob says, to be a bit, and you know, as they say in the 2020, fast and dirty. These guys are running off. They're not good fighters. They're running off base 5, +5 to their handguns. Boom. All of them are shooting at +5s, and you just run the combat that way. You know.
Love it.
I actually have several characters that have the exact same stat blocks. I just theme them differently, voice them differently, and storytell them differently. And there's no way that the players can really tell. And they appreciate the characters for different reasons. They serve different purposes as well. And they're the exact same numbers, right? And I can change those numbers if I need to, and when it serves the story or whatnot. But I think you're right. Reskinning is probably one of your best ways to handle NPCs, so you can focus on the storytelling and where they want to go, and then make the adjustments as you go, for sure.
Yeah, like Phil, like you were saying with the stat with like the 5 and give them 5, they're a basic sort of goon vibe. The same thing with our Sirenscape Weekly, like what I did when you ran into the bozos. If you noticed, there was kind of like those 3 tiers of bozos. That general clown makeup overlay I was using, the slightly scarier one with the pointy teeth, that was a little tougher to fight. He had the slightly higher stats and skill levels. And then like the boss and the big guy, you know, like, so I kind of had like 3 levels of like the weak one where Phil was just popping heads with the sniper rifle and they're taking them out left and right. Then the other ones that put up a decent fight, did some damage back. And then kind of like the head boss that should have been more difficult, but Phil kind of fucked him up pretty quick, but anyways, you get the point. Like, yeah, you know, even if you condense the stats, you can still kind of tier them, like a really weak version with a really low combat and social number, and then just boost it a little, then boost it the most, and there you have like a couple different levels to work with, and you can always change it as you go. That's the other thing, is if you're GMing and the players are having a really easy time, beef it up a little, or add more of the weaker ones.
Two
if you need to.
ninjas.
Or vice versa. If they're really getting beat up,
Two
maybe you
ninjas
need
appear.
to. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yes, Seth. We're over to you with initiative.
And that gives opportunities for. Yeah, sorry.
Oh no!
No. Go ahead. Yeah. What else you got?
I had to come up with something because it was like, no one's going to get mine. But then along comes Rob. I was going to be. We actually made a lot of jokes about having the guard or the bad guy that we're going to be going up against actually be kind of likable, and you kind of feel some empathy toward him. I also like to have it where you have a person who is not a bad guy, who is also really unlikable, but the player characters have to interact with them. They're like a shopkeeper that's just an ass, or the person, which what they're known for is they have to work with this person. They might be their boss or whatever, and they're not villainous in any way, but they're also just so damned unlikable that it actually adds a nice little twist when they go and they meet the guard. And now they're helping the guard out with his girlfriend trouble right before they have to put a bullet in the back of his head. And they're all like, man, I really like Steve. And then they go back to this jerk who's the one that's trying to buy the MacGuffin that they had to get from him. And so don't be afraid to have your friendly NPCs be jerks, not backstabbing, just jerks. Like they're not going to backstab them, but they're going to talk down to them. They're going to be just rude or everything, because the players will love it because they feel this emotion toward that character, even if it is hate. Like, I fucking hate this guy. And it's the guy that sells armored shirts. I mean,
right.
This guy again.
And what I'll say to that as well is that, like, a lot of the time the NPCs won't know that they're jerks, right? A lot of the time they're just like trying to do their thing. They're trying to do what's best for them, serving their own motives, right? So you can lend them that authenticity, but it's like, I sell chain shirts. That's all I do. I don't want you to. That's whatever. I'm trying to buy the MacGuffin. Leave me alone. And that's their whole deal. And like the NPCs might hate that, but they're gonna do what's best for them, right? Because that's the authenticity of the NPC of the character. Where did that 100%. I agree with Seth there.
Absolutely. Who is next in initiative? Was it Phil or Dread? Who we got?
Me with a 6. One thing that I'll point to is, as much as my first point was that NPCs are your way to play, also recognize that NPCs are the GM's superpower. It's through that you're able to do a great many things in the story to affect the player's motives and to breathe life into the story as well. As Seth said before, those two stormtroopers were well building. They're talking about the new speeders, like you can also do the same with your NPCs as well. You can talk about Frank's shop down the road running out of chain shirts, and that sets up a story for you, in the future where you find out that iron is now rarer than gold, and you can do that world building in play, right? So one of my favorite things to do with NPCs is to help people realize things in the story, or realize things that they might be able to do by having that NPC there, or having that NPC be able to affect it. It's like, if we just had that. We just had that grenade that we could blow the door wide open. If we just had someone that could blow the door open, I've got a grenade. Why didn't I think about using the grenade to open the door? And that's just like one very basic sort of example. You can facilitate play with them in ways that aren't just you saying across the table, "Hey, you've got a grenade. You could use the grenade." No, you've got a grenade because you took it from Steve after you shot him in the head.
I think that's
He's
great.
Just trying to.
A lot of GMs are scared to do stuff like that too. They feel it's too meta or whatever, like they're too railroading or meta gaming. But like that's another great tip. I'm glad you mentioned that, because sometimes, like say the players, they never engage with those NPCs to ever learn that over there in that town, iron's worth more than gold.
Yep.
Now they never know. Now they can't do the trade to get the money they need to do whatever next.
Yeah, exactly.
So now you kind of got to have this next NPC just remember, oh, did you hear these rumors? And like now you got. And you put it in the game rather than just saying it outright to the players. You say it as an NPC to the characters in a tactful way. And what a great! I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think a lot of new GMs are scared to do stuff like that, and you can do that a little bit to keep the game going.
It's actually one of the things that a lot
valuable
of people...
for new players.
Yeah, go sorry.
Oh yeah,
I agree. Yeah, 100%. And that way,
it's that little reminder,
right? NPC,
Yeah, 100%. They're a superpower. They are.
Yeah.
They can help you do so many things. They don't just have to be like, oh, I'm here to sell you something. It's like, no,
Right.
I want things too. Yeah, obviously you don't want to be like someone that knows like, oh, if only you had a grenade. But it's like you
Right.
can facilitate, you can do it more tactfully than that, and than
But
just
by
saying, oh, you,
but by session 3,
yeah,
they didn't figure it out, and it should have been at the beginning of session 1. Maybe then you are like, if we only had a grenade, because you're getting
yeah,
that far.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but yeah,
Yeah,
There's
exactly.
some way we could violently blast through this obstacle.
right.
So we can
Only.
throw.
No, I think that's great. That's a great tip, though.
With
Yeah,
our
a
hand.
lot of GMs need to know. NPCs they're a tool, and they can be very powerful. They can be a
Yeah.
plot mover, and they can kind of help the players and help kind of keep things going and moving forward. They're the glue that can
Yeah,
kind of keep the
100%.
plot together if things are getting derailed. And like Seth said, especially with new players that are learning the ins and outs of a game and what to kind of look for and how to figure things out and stuff. Sometimes it's you don't get it right away. You get in a lot of
Yeah,
games, and then you
exactly.
kind of get the feel of how things work and stuff. But yeah, I think that's great.
Yeah, exactly.
You got anything left, Phil, or have we all tapped the well dry? What else we got? You're next.
Well, I've got one more. I've got one more thing. One more
Nice.
thing. So, and I hope it kind of ties a few things together. So we talked a lot about sort of background NPCs, doing NPCs on the fly, and like filling in background detail. But the other side of that is, your feature NPCs. So these guys are plot important. They have valuable info that's needed, or they are paying for the job to get done, or they're motivating it. They might come from the background of one of the PCs. So these guys, you can afford to take more time with. Pour some prep into these guys. Stat them out in more detail if you want to. Think more about not just what they want, but what they know, because they might have incomplete knowledge about what's happening, right? So they might want you to steal a program from a database, but they are misinformed about how tight security is, right? And they give you the wrong info. So what they know in their internal world is worth kind of working out ahead of time. And you're going to spend some time with this NPC. Maybe they're going to join the party. Maybe they're going to guide them through something. Maybe they want to supervise, And if you have someone like this, pour some extra love into them. Give them some background, some motivations, some relationships. Give them a physical characterization, hunch shoulders, stand tall, give them some voice. And as well, our very first tip, this is a chance to really have fun and be creative with one of these creations. Really make them 3D, make them memorable. And another tip, maybe they're going to be an asshole, Maybe this person that you're going to force them to spend a whole kind of campaign with is really rubs them the wrong way, and that's part of the friction, Maybe they come from someone's background, but in a negative way. They're an old enemy that now you have to team up with. Your feature NPCs, the love will kind of reflect back out into your game, and your players will really appreciate that and hook onto these people if you have taken your feature NPC and really thought about what it is that makes them tick. What they want, and also give them an opportunity to change as well. Maybe they can soften their rough edges. Maybe they can give them some hope where they had none before. Maybe you betray them and suddenly they become cynical, or they become an enemy down the line. Give them a chance to shift and change with the storytelling as well. So it's kind of the opposite end from these kind of fast and dirty tips. Yeah. Is that you can have a lot of fun yourself, and you can really enrich your game by focusing down onto that important PC and do everything that you might do when preparing a new player character.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because we were mentioning the fast ones, and some are returning or deeper or bigger, and you might want to elaborate more rather than the quick one.
I was about to say, no matter how much work you put into them in advance and how much elaborate backstory, you're still going to remember Steve, that one guard who was having girlfriend trouble.
I know, they are, yeah.
At the end of the day, he was their favorite. You're like, man, I spent so long on that one big bad guy, and it was Steve the whole time.
Yeah. Marceline, who's fighting for her community. No, don't care about her.
No.
Right.
Steve.
Steve.
It's Steve. It's always Steve.
No, I think,
But then go and stat out Steve. Go and give him some depth.
That's
exactly.
It was Steve all along.
And so, hey,
Marceline was the girlfriend of Steve.
And look,
we didn't know that.
What you just joked on is kind of a tip worth saying too there, Phil, is the fact that sometimes you'll have a quick, easy NPC that the players bring more life into than you ever thought. Like, he was just going to be that bodega guy that's just trying to work. He's been working doubles all week to pay, and all of a sudden they get more and more involved. They do this, they pay him, they help Steve with his girlfriend, and now they're gonna, no, we need to go to your house, we'll talk to her, we'll persuade her, we're gonna, like, all of a sudden you're like, wait, what are we doing? And all of a sudden you're on this side arc, with this NPC. So now you're gonna elaborate some things that the players helped kind of pull out of that NPC, and I've seen that happen. So I think, all jokes aside, I think, Phil, there's the second part to your tip there. I think that's great.
We're giggling because we've all been there.
Exactly.
We've definitely all been there.
It happens.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah.
I mean, on that though, like, you've also got to be, like, one thing I'll say with, like, your feature NPCs is allow them to be affected. That's something that I don't think gets said very often, that you have your big NPCs, the ones that you're like, oh, I've spent so many hours thinking about what they would say in this moment and what they would do and, like, what's happening in the world. And then something happens and you're just like, well, I could just sidestep it this way. Give the ability for the story and the players and everything that happens to affect that NPC as much as you might pour that love and that respect into that character. We sit down at the table and we bring our toys to the table, which are our characters, our worlds, our NPCs, because we want to see them affected and changed, broken and remade. It's really important to put it all out there and give that sort of, like, same thing that their players give you to them. There's one character that I absolutely adored, and it was in a fantasy setting, and it was a Draco Lich that had been turned into a like an Illithid. So it was a Draco Illithid Lich, and it had all these, like, stories in my head that it was going to happen, and then they brought the pain, they smacked it down and destroyed it, and this I had beautiful art done for it as well from my partner, and they killed it. And I had to be okay with that because it was a part of the story. And I brought my piece to the table, and that was a part of the story going forward. And it really reminded me that, hey, that happens with anything that you make at the table. You have to be okay with it being affected.
You got to kill your darlings.
You got to kill your darlings. Yeah, 100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I think that was great.
I think that's everyone 2 rounds.
Yeah, I think we covered 2 rounds, and I think there was enough crossover there that we kind of covered each other's subjects a bit to where I definitely didn't leave anything on the table. Did anybody else? Any last tips? Anything?
No.
Yeah, I think.
Is there anything from the chat, Rob, that caught your eye?
No, I was checking it out the whole time too. For the most part, people were agreeing with what we're saying. I think it was a lot of great tips because people were relating. And we have a lot of fellow players and GMs there that I know from my games, and ones that were pointing out fans of Seth and Phil and Dread and stuff. And yeah, I think we pretty much nailed it. I'm real happy that we brought the GM roundtable back, Phil. We had great guests. Thank you so much, Seth and Dread, for joining us and making this subject just come to life. I had it envisioned in my mind. We'd be going around the table doing this initiative thing and rocking out some tips, but it went much better than I thought. I got some out of this myself. I think that we were able to elaborate our own thoughts with each other's help, and it was just really cool to just see all these tips come to life collectively, and hopefully people watching, they find this helpful. If you're watching this and you found it helpful and you got some good tips out of this for your NPCs, make sure you like and share the video, whether you're watching the VOD on YouTube or right now you're watching the live. Make sure you sub. Also, check out the description. I'm going to put everyone's social links in the description of the VOD. So make sure you take a moment and you go check out Seth, you go check out Dread, Phil, check out what I have going on. Check out all the links in the description and show us some love. We do this stuff because we have a passion for tabletop role-playing games. We truly do love doing this, but I'd be lying if I didn't say it's absolutely validated with your support. So, if you like it, you share it, you check out what we have going on. It means so much to us. So please do. Any last words, Phil?
God, am I being killed off?
No, before I kill the transmission here, just wanted to kind of go around the table, let anyone say their last words before
there, Rob.
Turns out, Phil, that you were Steve all along.
You were Steve all along.
No, it's just great to be back. Great to be back. Come back for the next one, everybody, and hopefully we'll have you guys back on at some point as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Please, this was amazing.
Yeah, any last words from you, Dread, before I kill this transmission?
Keep creating and keep playing. It's important. I have a passion for it, and I'm so lucky to be up here with everyone else who shares that passion. I totally agree. So keep spreading that passion for tabletop role-playing games, because we got some really cool stories to tell together.
Hell yeah, well put. Definitely. Seth?
The only other thing I would just kind of add on to that is, there's a lot of work that we talked about, but the ultimate thing is we do this to have fun and to have fun with our friends and to make a bunch of memories. And everything we do and all the work we put in is only the sake of having fun and lots of laughing. And so never forget, when you're trying to come up with a perfect story, this is all about having fun. And that's the only thing that matters. That's
perfect. Let's end it right there. We'll see everyone next time, last Friday of the month. Thanks so much. Take care.
Bye.
Cybernation Uncensored.